All right. Hello, everybody. Sam and Ben here, I guess. This is technically our second episode, but it's really our first because I screwed up and didn't record my audio for the first one, so we got a little do-over. Um, and yeah, we probably won't talk about the exact same stuff as last time, but maybe some will be rehashed. We'll go over some random stuff, I'm sure, at point this episode or another one. But basically, yeah. Ben and I decided to start a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Basically just yeah, I guess we're just two basically like self-help advocates, consumers, if you will.
Of course.
Who are like, I guess trying to take the information we've heard and processed and apply into our lives. Currently, maybe have other stuff. But basically just find a bunch of the stuff pretty interesting, and generally every now and then Ben and I have had our own conversations, and we thought it'd be cool to just start a podcast about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Ben, he's Sam. We are both ex-Spite pros for ages. We
Yep.
basically consumed most of each of our 20s well, I'm already 30. Sam is
29.
30 as well? 29,
Almost there.
nice. But yeah, so uh we both like listen to a bunch of podcasts, just like read a bunch of stuff that like can or might not help us with with just like how we kind of think about things, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like talking about like anything in life helps your brain thinks about it, because you kind of have to say it out loud and put it into like words. And so the podcast is like for us to learn and grow from, but also, if anyone enjoys like what we have to say, then that's great too.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Especially the talking about things out loud, because I feel like I get lost so much when I'm trying to like translate a thought and practice with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So yeah, I mean that's generally pretty good for the intro, I think. Um. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it we're gonna be figuring out on the fly. We've kind of had a practice run, I guess, with our last failed episode. Um, but we're still gonna make a bunch of mistakes and better at it. So that's the whole goal for us. So,
Yeah, the only way is upwards.
100%. Yeah, my mind's telling me to say we might have some guest appearances from Charlie here on Ben's lap and my
Yeah,
cats. You can see Oliver on the couch, and
very
there's another one.
nice.
But we can get into it. So I was thinking, yeah, about talking of the general topic of like staying present and being in the moment. Um, and there's a lot of branches that we can go off of that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have anywhere to go with it, but I could start if you don't.
Yeah, you can kick us off.
Um, yeah. So I guess my initial thoughts about it are that I feel like right now it's really tough this day and age with like the technological age, I guess. Because there's just so much in so many ways you can kind of fill those like gaps of like being boring and things like that. This is how I think it starts by like watching videos or listening to music or doom scrolling or anything like that when in time, and then I think that kind of bleeds over into any like activities you end up doing and kind of you know makes it harder to stay fully focused or especially for me, I've dealt with like a lot of like anxious thoughts or thought loops and things like that, and especially when I have those it's really hard to stay present in like what you're doing. um
For sure. I feel like it's hard to be like organically bored anymore. Like
oh yeah.
you always have something that you like could do. You literally have a tiny little phone that you can always be on. Like you can wake up and just spend 16 hours on it, and you can find
Mm,
different stuff to do it on it. If you don't have anything else to do, you can download another app like a game or something, Candy Crush,
yeah,
and you can just like throw 3 hours at that if you want. Always, like you don't have to do anything. Like if you go to a theme park, because I have recently, I went to Disney World in Florida,
yeah, yeah,
and the queues are just a bunch of people on their phones. Like that's all it is. And
yeah.
like I think what that like no one really is in the moment at all. Like
Mm,
until they really have to put their phone down because they might lose it on the ride.
yeah.
Then they're in the moment for 2 minutes, and then they're back to their phones. Or well, they have to find where they are and like look around, and
Right,
that's
right.
cool. That's you're gonna be in the moment like that. But I just thought it was such a funny little microcosm of life. Like when you're in the car, if you're not driving, you're on your phone. If you're driving, then you could be listening to something, and the
Yeah.
thing you're listening to can be really good. I'm not like bashing everything you can do on
Mm,
your phone, everything you can listen to, but I don't remember the last time I drove and like 100% of my energy was on being in the moment or just driving. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that can't even be good for like the driving itself,
Are
like in terms of pure safety. But
you,
like yeah, just the I feel like and if you're never bored or if you never have moments in life where you just don't have anything to do, like waiting or chilling, doing nothing, then I feel like it like blurs the times when like life is exciting, when you really should be like focused on what you're doing, like the best times of your
oh
life.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know
kind of
if
dulls
you've
it down, you know,
yeah
once it,
abided
if
with
you
some of
will.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, even for driving, it's pretty funny because like you can just kind of dissociate a little. I don't know if you've done that. Like times where you're
Yeah,
driving and then
100%.
like 10 minutes later you're home and you're like, oh, I don't remember a single part of that drive.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Or like sometimes like something kind of unsafe will happen, whether it's like your fault or not. You know, you don't have to like be
mhm.
speeding or whatever. But something like weird will happen, like someone will pull out when it was kind of unsafe, or maybe
Yeah, yeah, and you get pulled
merge
back
when
to
it was kind
reality.
of
You're like,
unsafe,
oh,
and you'll be like, "Whoa!" Like, "Oh, wow!" I wasn't like my reactions weren't even close to what they could be if like
yeah,
I was really at, but like if that's the case, when how would that relate to anything else you're doing? You know, how would that relate to like how you're gaming or working or doing anything you find fun? How
mhm.
would there's got to be some crossover there that you could probably be way more focused.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of like I notice it for sure. Even like TFT is a game I've been playing.
Hmm.
I play Tactics, auto chess, auto battler.
Yep.
Kind of, I guess. I don't know if it's like adjacent to Hearthstone, a lot different.
Yep.
Um, but especially that, like I always look for a video to put on the side or something like that. So I'm never really that focused on it. And especially, I also am doing this like software engineering like boot camp.
Mhm.
And as soon as I get like a little bit stuck or something, it's so easy just to be like, I'll just put on like I'll try to watch like a video or play anything like that. It's just very easy to how do I say like one thing in therapy recently that's been like identified, I guess, is that
Mhm.
um when things are like I guess for me specifically when things are like harder um or like maybe it could be like traumatic emotions, just things that, like it could be a lot of stuff, but I think in general I tend to either distract myself or like dissociate from it overall. I don't want to like deal with that being like tough, you know. And I think
Mhm.
it works for like my program too. When I go through like something that I'm like struggling to like learn, I'm like, cares? Let me go. Uh, yeah, I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I feel like it. Maybe this is I shouldn't be a therapist, but I feel like it's easy to it's so easy to disassociate stuff that you don't have faith in, or like you not don't you find difficult or challenging.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you're gonna like then you have to accept that you don't know how to do something for a
Oh
second.
yeah, yeah,
That's all.
yeah. I mean, this is like, or
Yeah.
this is almost the, I don't know if I'd say more advanced or not. Advanced is the right word, but this is like, I think there's better things to work on than this. Like I've been like instructed more or less to like I've been doing some harder stuff like running that for me
Mm,
that are really tough, and to try to improve that like skill, I've been uh trying to like when I run rather than like distract myself by thinking about other things or whatever it may be, like trying to actually focus on like maybe that cramp that I'm feeling or like the pain in my legs or whatever. Any more of the moment, that
hmm
stuff to get used to not like running away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the for me one of the hardest things. I've done some yoga recently because I signed
Mm-hmm.
up at a gym a few months ago, and they do free yoga classes, so it's like okay, I'll check it out. And I hate it. Like I don't hate the idea of yoga. I hate physically being there and stretching my limbs out to the point like where I just feel like not inferior. I just feel like super challenged physically, not mentally. I actually the only reason I go back is mentally. It makes me I feel like it makes me like more mindful the whole day. It just makes me just better than
Yeah.
I am the whole like the rest of the day, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like now I understand why there's like yogis and stuff and people who like really train and try to be super um advanced at yoga, but one of the like what I just hate it. But I feel like that's part of the reason it's so good.
Yeah.
Is like how awful being in the moment is. Sometimes you're trying to do these stuff with your legs or arms or whatever. Usually it's legs for me that just like this is awful. Like this is horrendous.
Like
I'm at
split
like
squats or something. I don't know if you do.
yeah, well, yeah. It's not even like particularly hard stuff, but it's like okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, if I'd be like my body would be happy to never go again ever. But it's like well, uh, go back, and then also like they constantly preach to you to like be in the moment. Like
Yeah.
if something hurts or if something feels different or uncomfortable, to just like accept it and let it wash over you
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like it's like all this yoga speak that I'm not really attuned to
Mm-hmm.
yet. Mm. But like uh rather than just be like yeah focus through the pain, bro, like which is like kind of other advice that you'd hear like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like if you were training for the army or
Mm-hmm.
doing like bro gym stuff, then it'd be like yeah focus it's weakness leaving the body, bro, that's the pain. Just to like acknowledge it, and I feel like that's like I think that's such a great practice of yoga is that it basically just teaches you like as kind of the title or the subject of the video is to be just in the moment just for an hour, just or
Yeah.
even less than an hour, just do it for an hour and see what happens. No one's on their phones, no one's like distracting themselves, people don't even like talk to each other until like before or after
Mm-hmm.
the class. That it's just pure like it's kind of just like peace,
Yeah.
which I feel like is kind of lacking in well, most of the other parts of my life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I love doing yoga too, and something I've definitely noticed. But I guess with doing hard things is like you need something that's difficult that challenges you, because then like especially for like yoga or other things, you have to stay in the moment to actually be able to like not be able to do things. But like if it's too
Mhm.
difficult, then you kind of like disconnect also. So like you
Mm.
can like you know if it's something too tough, you're like, oh, this is stupid.
Yeah,
But
well, there's like a point, right, where the
yeah,
pain is too much that you kind of get like a tiny little bit of trauma that your brain
yeah.
wants to protect you from again.
It could be the same with like a math problem, like can't comprehend. over my head.
Yeah, yeah, where the story you tell yourself is that it's too hard
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than, "Oh, it's challenging, but I can get it," you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I feel about yoga right now. It's challenging, but I can get
Yeah,
it.
and that's a good feeling for sure. But yeah, what I want to bring it to also is that I think I've gotten a lot better with staying in the moment recently, and I think doing things like yoga and stuff helps. But I think there's other strategies that I've personally at least like worked on myself that have helped a lot. Um, I'd
Uh-huh.
say some of the two biggest is probably like one is like I've done self worth like practices basically. Um,
Mhm. And what do they look like?
what do they look like? I guess I
Yeah,
have
what
like
yeah.
that was another thing I was given in therapy. Basically, a task of like every day, just like once a day. I basically try to like I could do anything, but I try to with myself and basically think about like yeah, put some. Uh, basically I just look at myself and first I try to like humanize myself because that's something I've been pretty bad at in the past where like I basically just have a crazy like expectations for myself compared. So I'll like
Mm.
say that like I'm a human worthy of giving love and being loved and then strengths and weaknesses and things like that. And then I like pick out some things that like I think it was phrased to because it can be tough at first to pick out things that maybe you love about yourself if you like really struggle with it. There's phrased to like look at yourself like a friend would look at you, and then why like they would be in your life or why they're your friend or things like that.
That's probably extra hard because I feel like perspective when it's about yourself is one of the hardest things in the
Yeah,
world, you know what I
it is
mean?
hard, but it's more like trying to frame it like if you look at a friend, especially if you have low self worth, mine's gotten a lot better. I think I still have like room to grow, but like I would never like for you or like any other friends really I don't look down and think like oh they're like anything similar to how I have thought about myself. Um,
Mm.
so it's kind of trying to gain that perspective, but towards yourself, like
Mhm.
which yeah, it's hard for sure, but I think it's also a little bit of like a fake it till you make it at first too. And you're kind of like
And you feel
yeah.
like an imposter then, though, if you fake
Um,
it till you make it?
no, I actually don't think so. I think that's a pretty. It sounds like weird, but I do think it's actually kind of proven to work for me at least, and I think like a lot of people like you just kind of like if you believe something long enough, I think it generates.
Mm. Okay. Stubbornly, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that's helped a lot because a lot of like my anxious thoughts, which kind of pull you out of your like present body, can come from like low
Mhm.
confidence, low self worth. At least mine
Oh,
have.
yeah.
Not a
100%.
uniform thing, I'm sure. But like yeah, even like during like tournament games or stuff like that for Smite, I definitely would think about like worst case scenario or how people would view me from like a bad play. When I was in my worst like form, I think generally those were consistencies because I'm not thinking about the game
100%.
right. I'm thinking about like
Completely mirror.
mhm,
The amount of times I thought, "Oh, like, how was this not a problem for me, like, before or whatever like
yeah,
this?" I almost felt like it in a way, it got worse with age or maybe with
yeah,
time,
kind of
which
me
is crazy
too.
'cause, as I grew, I felt like I cared about what people thought less, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's just a lie that I
Yeah,
had,
you
that
try to
I
force yourself
cared
to think
more.
that, you know.
But yeah, yeah, but my worst games were like I'd make a mistake, which is fine. Making mistakes is like part of
Yeah.
any pro player in any game. Like even Paul, you know,
Mm-hmm.
these all these great players as my PBM, they made so many mistakes, but it'd be like that they wouldn't let it reflect on the rest of their play, or at least it wouldn't look like it.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't one tiny little micro whatever mistake wouldn't like what I'd do a lot is I'd make a pretty big mistake, pretty bad mistake. Maybe I get first blooded. Maybe I just drop a kill somewhere. And then that would turn into um like me kind of thinking about that play. Not necessarily, oh, what does everyone think about that play? Maybe just like,
Yeah.
oh, what might one teammate think about that play?
Uh-huh.
Or oh, what did I think about that play? That was like really terrible. Um
Well, it builds up,
and
right? And then
then
you're
like
like, oh, I
it
can't
would
mess up the next
affect,
one.
yeah, in 30 seconds, maybe I'd be like slightly less confident. There's like two
Mm-hmm.
emotions. If you're angry, you feel optimistic about things. So let's say you're really angry with the way like things have gone, like
Yeah, you
the way
try
you
to
play, the way
overforce
the
stuff
game's
then or
gone.
something.
Then you try to overforce and try to take these crazy, like this wasn't good. And then if you're like sad or like miserable, you usually get pessimistic
Yeah,
about
you think
plays, which
everything will be
makes you not
bad.
make the correct like aggressive plays. Like sometimes it's correct to blink in. Sometimes it's correct to make like a sack play where you just
Mm-hmm.
start a fight because you know you're gonna have numbers and you're gonna get fire giant from the fight or whatever. Or maybe you have to like tank a tower for your mid laner or something like that. And I felt like it's like it's just it's just being a pro any being in any game can be super emotional, and it's like emotions generally, like the reason why people say some of the best players are so like stone cold and whatever, is because um emotions can just like make you play so much worse,
Yeah.
rather than um I guess just kind of being completely like a goldfish, right? The
Yeah,
thing where
yeah, yeah.
they have really short
Right, right.
memories, and just like forget everything that's happened, just like focus on what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like if I did that during my pro career, I reckon I'd have won like 3 championships
Yeah.
easy, if not more.
That's for sure
And
when
if
I was at my
I think a
best.
lot of pros could say the same
Yeah.
thing.
So I was definitely like that. I don't know if it was confidence or less expectations or whatever, but there was a point where I just didn't care too much, like, and that actually helps. It helps an infinite amount, being able to make mistakes and then keep going. But
Yeah, it does. And teammates can actually be a factor in that.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
when like you have the right personalities, people that maybe someone who's like super uplifting, or maybe someone who's just like super nonchalant or funny,
yeah,
and like completely help you forget anything bad, or just like see the funny side, or just like I guess put it into perspective what's happening, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, my thing is, I also would internalize everybody else's issues with myself, and I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's
Mm.
mad because I did this thing wrong." That's like, so when teams got really bad, I would just think, which
Right, yeah.
also
Seriously.
is pulls you really out of the moment, and you're just like thinking about how like this person's mad because it goes down a very slippery
Yeah, yeah,
slope,
that's
and
that's like a whole other level,
yeah,
you know, like you can be in your head about like what's happened and emotional
uh-huh.
whatever, but that is a whole other level of like an overarching theme of just like,
Yeah,
oh, and I don't even think it's like necessarily only in games. I feel
no, no,
like
no, it can be about
you think of
anything.
that all the time with other people, no matter what, you know, in every facet of
Yeah,
life.
I
Um,
genuinely like. I mean, I'm not quite there, but like I genuinely just had the goal of not trying to like bother anybody ever, like trying to like be a negative impact on their. It could be
yeah,
a random person that like I could be next to in line. I wouldn't like you don't want to like ruin their day by interacting with them. Something ridiculous like that. Um,
yeah,
so like yeah, well, so I think like when I think like a lot of it comes from like self worth or thinking you're like bigger than you are, so things like that, I guess. But like in general, that makes it really
mhm,
hard to stay in the moment in a lot of scenarios. So I think that's had
mhm.
a huge impact for me recently. And then also, um, I think like journaling's been really good for me recently, also, as well as like therapy.
Really.
Yeah,
How religiously do you do journaling? Do you do it
I'm
often?
definitely not religious. I kind of go on streaks with it.
No, no, no. I mean, like religious. Like,
Yeah,
how
no, I know,
regular
I
are
know.
you?
Yeah, that.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, yeah. My bad.
Yeah, no, you're okay. No, yeah, I don't do it that religiously. I'd say kind of depends on my moods, but I've also learned that I think it's equally as good to do it when you're in negative thought spaces as positive thought spaces. because I
Mhm.
think it's just a beneficial practice. And I also recently, like, I told a friend about like doing a podcast, and they mentioned basically like video journaling, and this is kind of like what that's like actually, um,
Mhm.
which I've never tried. So I guess it's kind of like trying it in some sense. But yeah, I think both are probably pretty equally beneficial. But I do it, I'd imagine a couple times a week recently. I've liked it.
Mhm.
And what I've noticed for sure is, especially if you tend to get like thought loops, like it's like you get stuck in your head with this similar thoughts over and over, or maybe you're thinking about a certain person or whatever. Like I think it really helps with that. And like those are types of things for me that have really impacted staying in the moment and trying to focus on something. Um,
Mhm.
but whenever I write it down, it kind of just gets it out of my head and helps like um, become more present afterwards. I feel.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I'd try that if you haven't given it a go before.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried journaling. I find myself writing a lot of the same stuff
Yeah.
that consumes my everyday. I don't know, what am I into?
Mm-hmm.
What makes me wake up in the morning, like it's the same stuff usually, or the same stuff that annoys me through the years. Like I've always like really annoyed myself with like maybe lack of self-discipline for one, for example. Like that's
Yeah.
been like a big present in my whole life. Maybe that's kind of like a story I tell myself, right? But
Mm-hmm.
which is negative. But in all things, like even something like, let's say, pornography, like through the middle of my 20s, like it was so bad. Like I had no had no self discipline. I knew
Yeah.
it was just a waste of time. Like you can say what
Yeah.
you want about pornography. I think people can overblow how like bad it is, right? For
Sure.
like relationships or whatever. Like it can just be something that like makes you feel happy for 2 minutes, right? But like
And then
if
bad
you want,
after.
but I thought it was yeah, and feel bad after. And I felt like it was like kind of an addiction, low key for sure, but maybe high key. But it's like, and then I tell myself the story. Oh man, I just don't have any discipline. I just don't have
Yeah.
any discipline. This is just something that, like I'll always need to do. But
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
um, so it's like that for me. But then if I was to go and write all the journal is like I remember reading that you should journal when I was like 20, and that's
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago now. So I did it a little bit, and then I did a little bit more like when I was like
Mm-hmm.
25, 26, and then I've done a little bit more in this last year, because this last year I've been the first year with like no like guaranteed pro play 100% of the time. Like I fully quit. I'm like retired.
Yep.
Um, like it's been like kind of a miserable year in mentally, not in some ways it's been great. I've been like spending so much time with my daughter, which is like hard to explain what that even means, but it's like amazing to be able to do that. It's a great like blessing. It's an
Uh-huh.
opportunity. um but like also I just don't have like a reason to wake up in terms of like, oh, I used to really feel like it was so much of my self-worth to wake up and try to get better at Smite and be the best,
Yeah.
try to be the best, compete. That's just stuff that I just love to do. um like today, what am I going to do? What am I going to practice? Am I going to try this crazy tactic? Am I going to do this? Am I going to just try to be a better teammate? um you know um
Mm-hmm.
so back to self but so yeah, like this year specifically has been really hard, and I've journaled a lot. But a lot of it is the same themes of like, oh, I don't have any self discipline. It's hard for me to like have a schedule. Like the house, look at the house behind me. Like I'm a full time stay at home dad. I could clean this
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
any day I want. You know what I mean? But that's just like, uh, it's just like, I don't know, a negative feedback loop. And that's
Hmm.
what I find with journaling. Well,
I
that's
see.
my worry, I guess. If I wonder if I read through every single like journal thing, whether it was on my phone or in
Yeah.
an actual book with a pen, how many times I'd read similar things.
Um.
And maybe that's the only like I'd say negative
I think
to,
I think
well,
it's
not negative,
interesting.
just like
Yeah.
repetitive thing, I
In my
guess.
opinion, I think you could probably treat everything like you did Smite and break it down to aspects of stuff you want to improve on. It could be like like I would imagine Smite could be like your job as a stay-at-home dad, quote. But I also imagine generally being an aspect of like working on like mental health, and it's like one
Mm.
skill. And hmm, I was thinking about when you learn anything, it could be a sport, Smite, or whatever. Generally, what I've realized is the best strategy is at first you learn about the overall thing, kind of generally encompassing, and then you kind of break it down into specific aspects that you learn about. Um, and you kind of like, I feel like when I've learned things like you get better at one thing and then you realize that that's not holding you back anymore. So then there's like another thing that's like your limiting reactor. You
Mhm.
and then you kind of work on that and build that up. And
Mhm.
I'd imagine like that's how I view it, I guess, that like journaling is like one aspect of it, and I think it's really beneficial, but I could see for sure it being like that. But I think like maybe if you I don't know how you feel like your like self-worth. Um like I think
It's
like
weird.
getting that higher would help like progress other stuff too, or you know, random things like that is how I'm viewing it. That's how I feel. Like I've made like I feel like recently I made a bunch of like breakthroughs almost. Not to the point where I'm just like perfect person, which probably is just never possible, but it's felt like I actually see my like potential to like grow as like a person and somebody who I want to like I've seen like
Mhm.
results of it and it's very like promising. But like it's weird when you get there because you're like, you know, it's really awesome, but you're also understanding like the gravity of like where you can get to also. So it's like you kind of see how far you can really go, which I guess can be like daunting, but I think it's more positive. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, that you can see like the growth happening, and see where you can end up if you continue on.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I think just requires working on other stuff too to probably in conjunction with it.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, self worth, I think, like I said, helps a lot. I mean, I don't know, therapy. I mean, there's like a million things, you know, like last time we talked about labels a bit,
Yeah.
which I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
we can kind of talk about like we don't have to dig super deep into it, but can gloss over it with like anyways read like Stormlight Archives, like Journey Before Destination is like a big saying on there. I have it on my arm too.
Mhm.
Um
I was gonna say, hold it up, gangster.
a little bit of a view there. But like that I think kind of relates to like the labels we talked about before. To give a
Mhm.
just a general thing for the labels, it's that like mm, basically I feel like for most qualities of people, uh you can kind of be whatever you want, really. If you like put enough effort and like work on the skills of certain things, like being confident, self worth, or uh, hardworking, or really anything, you know. And I
Mhm.
don't think they're really uh, just qualities of people. Like they are, but they're not just I don't know, stagnant's not the right word, but just like set in stone. You know, like you can kind of
Yeah.
be whatever
Yeah.
you
No,
want.
I agree.
Um, and basically, I think Journey Before Destination, like there's a lot of aspects to it. Um, I wrote a bunch of thoughts down when I was on a plane recent reference.
I slam
Um,
it.
I'll read straight off and let's see. Basically, my meaning is taking it as you don't put focus on the destination. You need goals to know which direction to go, but it's about getting lost in the process. You focus on the destination, you get caught up in chasing goals that uh, you hope will give you happiness, and also means your endpoints come before anything else. Like confident or not confident, rich or not. It's really results based thinking. But yeah, I think it's about the process. The learning process is in general is pretty awesome for me. Like that's when I enjoyed things the most with like Smite or rock climbing or other stuff. And yeah, I think labeling leads you to believe that you're also at a destination, a journey to be had, so to speak. Um,
Mm.
is basically the majority of what I wrote there. I think I mentioned what would destination for journey. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Wait. You asked what would destination before journey mean?
yeah, yeah. What would that look like? Like, because last time we had a little bit of not necessarily conflict, but we had slightly different meanings. I think yours was pretty
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
maybe I took it as maybe a little more face value. You know, I forget exactly what
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah. Well, it was basically that I would have considered it more living in the present.
Yeah,
Like, I guess if you have a life, it can be uh where you ended up. Like, what that means to you can vary, right? Like how rich you were, um, how successful you were in whatever your job was. Usually, that's not going to matter to
hmm
as many people as, let's say, their family or their relationships that they had at the end, or um, had through their lives. Or you can look at it kind of from like a more like day by day perspective of like, how did you live your life, you know? Or like almost like, do the ends justify the means kind of idea, where it's kind of like it's not about the end result so much as how you did it,
yeah, yeah.
like the how you like walked your path rather than where you ended up.
hmm
I think that's where that's what I'd glean from journey before destination, if that would be how
Yeah,
I'd translate it.
I don't think it's wrong.
Um, yeah, you think is wrong?
No, I don't. I don't.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think it's just true. It's like things like which is I've definitely like I think overall I've been a very results oriented person and just
Hmm.
consider that like um which is pretty interesting because when you're like that you don't even care about the result that much. Like you do, but you care about not having the bad result I feel like rather than the good result like winning worlds or whatever, you know.
I
Like
think
it
it can be so true for other sports too. Like,
yeah.
I'm really into the Premier League, and I've got like my favorite team is Tottenham, whatever. But and I've got like other teams that I kind of root
hmm
for. But I'm just a fan of the sport, which is fine. I'm a fan of soccer or football.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so easy to get lost in the results of that sport because it's literally just goals
Yeah.
and goals conceded. That's it. That's like, if you win 1-0, it's a win for one team, a loss for the other. That's it. But what I really have grown to appreciate right now is like, there's all these stats that like all these football like pundits and commentators will talk
hmm
about, like dribbles, like successful dribbles, which is like kind of like when you've got the ball and
Yeah.
you dribble it past someone,
Right.
or successful tackles, successful like 1v1s, like if the ball's like kicked, launched near you and your opponent player that you're marking or
hmm
whatever, who comes out with the ball at the end. Just like little, like tiny little statistics, or like passes completed. And then there's like passes that are like risky that are completed, or passes that are forward that are completed. All these stats, and for me, it's like you really gain an appreciation for different players, um, based on every move they made during the game. And
Yeah.
there's 90 minutes in football. It's not You're not gonna. A lot of players are gonna have great games. They're not really going to be part of why they conceded a goal, why they
hmm
let their team lost to a goal, and they might not be part of why their team uh, team scored a goal. Like, they could just be a defender who passed it well, and then 5 minutes later they got a goal, right? But it's like, I'm really interested in those players that just have really really good stats, even if they're on like lower level teams,
Yeah.
who tend to lose a lot. And I think it's like For me, that's like a great summation of journey before destination. Like these players, and so these players usually do get picked up by the bigger clubs because like
Hmm.
their stats are known, they're scouted and all that. Um, and like these guys, sure they might have lost on the day or whatever, but they still like gave it all their heart. They still ran for every ball. Maybe
Hmm.
they were 3-0 behind. They still ran. They still tried. They still sweat. And it's like, and the stats show at the end like how much good stuff they did.
Yeah.
What they maybe when they were in the heart of midfield and like they didn't have much control over the goals they lost or the the lack of goals they have. And it's like I love that. I think it's such a good example and a microcosm. And it's like I wish when I was an athlete I had or when we were playing Smite when I was playing Smite I could have spent every minute just trying to do the best I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether we were 20k behind, I feel like it was so easy to just be like, yeah, we kind of lost. And I was a big fan, and I don't know if I necessarily think it was terrible. I was a big fan of talking about the next game's pick and bans.
Yeah.
I'd be like, guys, we're 15k behind. They've got Fire Giant. If they don't make a mistake, we're gonna lose. Like, I think we should talk about a little bit about picks and bans. Sometimes I'd
I
bring
would
that
hate
up. Just
that.
it's also a way to distract from the
Yeah.
loss
Yeah.
kind of thing. Which you can say whether that's good or bad. For a team, it can be good to get your head out of the
Hmm.
gutter and kind
Depends on the
of
team. Yeah.
more of a perspective. Yeah, it just depends. I know other people that have hated it other than you who I've teamed with.
Yeah.
Um,
Not my
but it's like,
mentality.
yeah, it's definitely against what I've just said about how you should spend every
Yeah. Yeah.
second being in the moment, just play, try to win what you can win, try to do what you can, make every micro play just a small win for you, um, and um, and I feel like that would be such a freeing way of doing anything,
Yeah. For
especially like
sure.
competing.
Yeah. I mean, even like I like that's what I tried to do most of. Sometimes you just get pulled out of it, stuff or being sad or whatever. But
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, it's honestly everything like, especially Western culturally, is very much about like measuring what your outcome was. Like I
yeah,
was
one
listening
hundred
to this
percent.
random podcast, and it talked about I think they were in Europe and there's like somebody like just some like lady swimming, and the person asked them like, "Oh, how far like do you swim?" And she was like really confused, and she was just like, "I just swim until I don't want to anymore," basically. And like,
Hmm.
but it's like pretty common like to just like I've been into running, and I run like I just try to run a mile and then I like, stop and like.
Yeah, I can't get it out of my head. Like I'll look at the
Hmm.
distance all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I will look at the time a lot as well. Like, oh, how have I been running? Maybe I can push to 20 minutes. Maybe I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
push
right.
to like
Exactly. It's like, oh,
10 minutes
is
if
this
I'm really
amount
tired.
satisfactory for like what I should be doing type of thing? Like it's really hard not to think about that.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. Like I've got a short-term goal of being able to do 3 miles in 30 minutes. I think that would be
yeah.
like, well, maybe that's not short-term. I don't know how many months that's going to take me.
Hmm.
But I can do 2 miles in like 24 minutes, right? But then I get really tired, and then
Yeah,
like
yeah.
both the speed and the endurance aspect like start catching up to me.
Hmm.
So I feel like, but it is. I'm so focused on the end result rather
Yeah.
than
And then
like
that makes you feel good or bad about
pushing.
like
You
how
know?
well you did and things like that. And like
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
good to have some type of like goal and direction,
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
said,
It's
but it shouldn't define like
exactly.
everything. Like
It definitely pushes me in the right direction. Like I'm just
right,
trying to
yeah.
like run for longer or
Which
faster.
is good.
And that's yeah,
But
that's
it
definitely
also
like
becomes
not bad in any
detrimental to
way.
some degree if you're like.
It can be, yeah. Especially if you reach it and then you're like, now what?
Yeah, yeah. But it's like the same thing. Like I used to think a lot about like end results for me as like and I'll get in a relationship then like I'll be way happier then type of stuff or things like that. I
Hmm.
think that type of mindset just is like it's good to have a goal for things that you want, a direction ahead, like I said, but
In
yeah,
big hindsight, from a married guy to a kind of, you're not officially dating anyone, right?
no.
Or has that changed? Okay. I would say that the biggest thing you should do is try to enjoy whatever the hunt
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
chase is, because I've talked about it with my wife, like, and I feel like it's not just like a guy or a girl thing.
Hmm.
I feel like that like mysteriousness of
Mm.
like, and constant there's constant failure. That's just a reality. That's just a
Yeah.
fact. Um, I miss it in a way. Um, I don't mind my low drama marriage, but there's an aspect
Mm.
of like the hunt or the
Right.
thrill, the not knowing, the guessing games, um, and also just like
Stressful.
self improvement in a way. Like I think I worked harder at the gym than I ever did when I was like really trying to
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
attract someone.
Right.
Um,
I think maybe I've headed
Now
in that
it's like I don't
direction,
know. I could
but
yeah yeah, but it's like it's weird. Yeah, I would say enjoy the
I mean, there's also stuff about like just
enjoy
being
the
single in
moment.
general and like having more free time and things. Like, there's always things to like look at that are positive, you know. But it's really easy
Yeah,
to
though
just focus on what you don't have and what you want.
I say this with a baby that constantly could use attention. You know, a marriage, whatever. Even though I'm like technically unemployed, I would say that free time can be a real curse. Honestly,
Oh yeah,
at
no,
least I feel like
it
it is
can.
on my brain. I wish I was like busy all the time and I wouldn't have time to
Yeah,
like overthink things or at least let negative thoughts spiral. I feel like if I was too busy
yeah.
for that, that'd be so cool. You know, it'd
No,
be
like
a
I've been there
blessing.
for sure, and I mean, maybe sometimes I am, and I'll like think comparing is pretty similar. You know, persons that thief of
Hmm.
joy or whatever. But like,
Nice, yeah.
um, yeah, free time can't really be filled by doing nothing, really. I think for it to actually be
No, you
super
can't, and
enjoyable.
you can't fake being busy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. You just gotta, but if you can learn to do things you enjoy with your free time, then I think that's like really awesome. And I think I've headed that
Sure.
direction. Like, I don't know, randomly I've just had a bunch of thoughts about how nice like the weather is and when you just like go on walks and things like that. Which might be sound like really simple, but or like
No, I agree. I think one of the best things you can do is like it's so. I mean, we could make a whole episode about it, but like gratitude, like
yeah.
where you're just like, yeah, it's a lovely day. Wow, we're in November and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I can go outside and enjoy the day. Wow, that's crazy. Like, uh, that's definitely I think that one of the cheat codes to feeling a bit better about the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Maybe another aspect. Gratitude, faith, there's a bunch of stuff that can just help your like mental well being and overall like I guess it's staying in the moment, but just happiness generally, I guess. I don't know if staying in the moment equals happiness necessarily, but I think they're probably pretty well coordinated.
Yeah, I think it maybe helps you.
Definitely
I don't
help.
want to say like I'm not like an efficiency or productive nut like I maybe used to be. Like I'd be like, oh, if
Yeah.
I'm ever traveling anywhere, I have to be listening to a podcast, and if I'm ever doing anything, like I have to make things efficient. Um, I definitely have let that go a little bit more, but
Yeah.
I think it does help you be more focused.
Yeah.
Being in the moment, I'd say more than anything, it helps you actually achieve what you're doing
Yeah. That's
to
funny.
the full extent. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, go if
I
you
was just
want.
gonna say it's funny because in therapy, one thing I when I was talking about this similar topic, I was like basically said that being present and like productive like the same thing. I guess I thought that. Um, and my therapist was pretty adamant that it's not. It's like
Oh, that's funny.
you can be like present laying in bed, like
Yeah, yeah.
or you could be like thinking about how you need to get up and do like anxious thoughts or whatever, or like present watching a movie or something like really into. Um,
Mm-hmm. That
so
is actually something that annoys the hell out of me when I watch movies with Zoe. She like
on her
constantly
phone or other
is
stuff like that.
distracting herself on her phone,
Yeah.
glancing up at the screen when something like big happens, and then she's like, "Oh," and then like goes back, and I'm like, "This is she like it's driving me crazy." Because I can't even fathom watching a movie that way. For me,
Yeah.
I can watch like missable TV, like let's say Friends or The Office, and I'm not bashing those
Yeah, that's what
shows;
I've
they're
been
great shows.
doing. I mean, I've been watching Lost
But
and I'm on
like,
my phone too a little.
yeah, 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 I can. there's a lot
or
of like
football or
kind of
something like
shows
that.
that have kind of too much like too much empty time
Mm-hmm.
that you're like, okay, whatever. But like an actually well-made movie, it's like that annoys the hell out of me. Like, how could you ever enjoy like great acting, great like
Yeah.
soundtracks that the directors put with like
Interstellar is a
perfect
movie I was
like
thinking of rewatching. It was,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
Like
that. Like,
imagine going like no one would do it surely, but imagine going to the cinemas and seeing someone on their phone like the whole like 2.5 hours
yeah,
of the movie.
I'm sure
Imagine that.
somebody actually would do that, but it'd
I'm
be
sure
criminal.
people have glanced at their phones a lot, but it's like I bet people have watched Interstellar at their own houses and like done that, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
at that point, why are you watching that? You know?
yeah. Well,
Um,
just trying to kill time, basically.
yeah, yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
another
But it's like,
concept.
wow, that's
Yeah,
you're just not enjoying
yeah.
what it actually was.
I do need to go here, honestly, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
could bring it up later. But that concept of like it's very similar with being present, but like how much of your life are you just like trying to kick the can down the road to the next part, of like distracting yourself with like, yeah, I don't know, it could be drinking
Yeah, and
or edibles or being on your phone or just putting on the movies to kill time that you're not actually paying attention to, or same with games that you're not really invested in, anything.
it was last I think it was not even a week ago. I was talking to someone how they were talking about how and that kicking the can down the road that like is what sparked it.
Mm-hmm.
How like the what made me what sobered my reality. What he was saying that they've done like the maths on like how if you deduct all the time you're gonna do sleeping or
Mm-hmm.
like in bed, all the time that you're gonna be eating, and all the time you're going to be on your phone or in front of a screen like your PC or whatever, TV, PC or phone, if you
Yeah.
deduct all that time, so sleeping, eating, in front of screens, um you don't have you have like a few like a few months left before you're going to die statistically
Hmm.
of time. So like if that's how you want to think about it, like times that you'll like let's say be out walking, times where you'll be out just doing something you truly wanted to do. You know,
Yeah.
you need to sleep, you need to eat to live, and then you're in front of the screens for whatever reason, whether it's distracting, pushing the time till something else. If you subtract all that, you've got a couple more months to live and then you're going to die in time. Like that sobered me up real quick. Like
Yeah.
that realism
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
because it's like there is only probably like an hour a day maybe of that what I
Mm-hmm.
just said,
Well, I mean,
or
that's
maybe
about
two
like
or maybe three. It
creating
depends.
that,
It's gonna
if you
depend on the
want.
person.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
but like for the average person, he said
Right.
it like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
for the average person. They've
Statistically,
taken
sure.
millions of people. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like that's crazy,
That is pretty
bro.
insane. Huh.
So yeah.
Well, I guess can leave with that thought. Maybe have something like that.
Very merry.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, try to get more in the moment. Doing things that help you do that.
Yeah.
Go do
Sam
things that
and
you like.
Ben do a podcast.
Yep, that's great. Um, okay. Well, thanks for listening. I guess if you have any things you liked or want to hear about or anything, let us know.
Any drastic changes?
Yeah, any drastic changes? We'll probably do it every other week though, so won't be 2 weeks before you have another. But yeah, if you enjoyed it. See you next time.